Okay, so this is part 2 in Cornell notebooks. And so again, I've got a nice sturdy notebook. And this notebook is biology. So these kinds of things might look familiar to you. And so if you take a look, this is a completed biology Cornell notebook. Okay, so let's give you an example here. Okay, so these notes were on trophic levels and food web. So the essential question was, what happens to the amount of available energy as trophic levels increase? Okay, and so it talks about the different types of energy pyramids, and the answer to the question is here. And then if you take a look at the bottom, this is a really good strategy to use. Every time you take notes, the best thing that you can do is summarize them at the end. And so Cornell notes typically have a section at the bottom, and it doesn't require a lot of writing, but if you can make a summary. So it says energy is lost as each level goes up. 10% is lost. Actually, this person is wrong. So 10% goes up to each level, but the rest is lost. It isn't actually lost, it's converted to heat through metabolism. So sorry, I read you that incorrectly, but you know, the students are going to have things written incorrectly. Try and make sure that you watch your videos and listen to your teacher and take notes correctly. So as each level goes up, 10% goes to the next level. So that's what it should say at the bottom, and I apologize for choosing a bad example. Okay, so here's another example of how notes can be done. Some teachers will make notes on a piece of paper, and you can just add it to your notebook. You can use tape or you can use glue. The same thing here, though. They are giving you the essential question, and then the notes are written in an organized fashion. This is typically more for very complex notes or notes for students who have trouble organizing. So the teacher might actually lead the student off so that the students can keep up with the notes. Most teachers, however, will go slow enough to keep up with the pace of their students. And then if you remember, I talked about left-hand side being a processing thing. So this is really cool. So the student took notes on succession, and then they made a Venn diagram, or this is a modified Venn diagram. So these are all things about primary succession. These are all things about secondary succession, and these are things that happen in both cases. Okay, so this is a really good processing thing. Sometimes you might just make a T-chart, however you feel like doing it. Okay, let's take a look at another example. Okay, so this is going to come up, you guys, I know you guys are doing this pretty soon. So properties of water. Okay, so this person didn't put their notes in, obviously you can tell. So what properties of water make it essential to life? So the student might have to lay out this in their notebook, and then the teacher says, okay, watch the video and take notes on the video while you're watching the video. And the nice thing about videos is you can pause it and re-watch it and things like that. So this person would probably write all of the properties of water that they learned about in the video. The teacher is also asking them to give definitions and explain and predict. So those are other things that your teacher might ask you to do in your Cornell notes. And then at the bottom is where you can summarize. Okay, let's look at this processing page. This is really cool. Okay, so if you look at the processing page, this person actually used some foldable techniques so that they could study it, okay? And so your teacher might get you to do this. So cohesion, if you look at the picture, cohesion is when water sticks to water. So they show the water holding hands, and then they talk about it in here or explain it, okay? There's adhesion, water sticks to other things. We see water sticking to a leaf, and then it is explained here. Water is less dense when frozen, and they show ice floating in the water, and water is a universal solvent, so sugar dissolves in water. They also talk about how water is polar and how hydrogen bonding is present in water. So these are really good ways to study what you learn by writing it over again in a different format. And if you can draw it, even better. Okay, so there's some examples of what Cornell notebooks look like and some of the things that you can add to Cornell notebooks. And if you take a look, you're going to see all of these types of things as you go through your class. You're going to talk about DNA, you're going to talk about protein synthesis. If you take a look here, okay, so here's some notes that are missing. Obviously, you don't want to have missing notes, but it says, how did the first cells begin? So that this student probably was not here that day or just didn't catch up on the notes. So they would take all of their notes here, okay, and then if they were processing on the other page, they could do a drawing or show what they learned from the lesson and things like that. So their diagrams can actually represent their understanding of it as well. And don't forget the old saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. You can show that you understand something by drawing it. Okay, and so those are some of the techniques that you can actually use while you're doing your Cornell notes. So here's a cool one here. I think I'm just going to take this off here. And this is where it would go. This is where the processing part of the lesson would go. Okay, so this says what factors cause populations to change over time, and then they talk about these different things. This is obviously something really important, and when you get to these notes, your teacher's probably going to make you write this down because this is super important. And then if you look down at the bottom, they summarized that there are 3 factors involved in the modes of evolution, along with 5 different modes of evolution. And if you look here, they processed by writing it in foldable format. Okay, the teacher probably gave them the notes and asked them to add to it and draw a picture of what each of those concepts look like. So that's another processing activity.